Good morning, good morning, good morning to everybody. Welcome to Kingdom Talk Live After Party. My name is LaShonda McClain. I am CEO and founder of Songs of Solomon's Intimate Fantasy Apparel. That is my lingerie company, the very first online faith-based lingerie company created with wives in mind. I'm also leader of Songs of Solomon's Best Wives Club. That is my ministry where we are wives only at our best in Christ. But you guys are here today for Kingdom Talk Live After Party. You are the remnant from the Kingdom Talk Live monthly shows that air every fourth Saturday on Facebook Live at 11 a.m. This month, we're going to be talking about, is the church still relevant today? I cannot wait to get into this topic with my co-host, Sister Krissa, Sister Stephanie, and Minister Tiffany. So you guys do not miss this Saturday's talk at 11 a.m. on Kingdom Talk Live right here on Facebook. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you chime in for the conversation. But today, I'm actually going to be introducing you to the creator and founder, the CEO and founder of Young Men Growing. His name is Mr. Gary Hicks. I'm so humbled, and it's such a privilege to have this young man on our show today. When I first heard about what he was doing in the community, it actually almost made me cry. Because I know this man, he knows my husband, they're very close friends, and they've grown in the faith together, and I love his family, his wife, and his children, and I just adore how God has wired him, and I'm just so proud of him for doing something so impactful to the community. And so I want to go ahead and toggle Mr. Gary Hicks on. Hello, good morning, Mr. Hicks.
Good morning.
I'm going to go ahead. I want to show the audience where this young man growing. I want to make sure that they see a little bit of who your face and the kids that you're working with, just a little piece of the kids, a little picture of the kids that you're working with. And I would just want to thank you again for coming on here live. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good. I'm excited.
Yes.
I've never done this before, so this is something new to me. And as y'all can see, I'm not the best with this lighting, so we're going to make this thing do what it do and make it work.
Yes, it is just fine. We're going to bring the light. Christ's going to bring that light. So you know what? Before we had the interview, we had a brief conversation on the phone, and I just had a chance to kind of really ask you to do the interview. So thank you again. And we had a chance to catch up real briefly, but I remember something you said on the phone call. It was really profound, and I think it's a good segue to kind of put us into our conversation about young men growing. So, you and I and Robert, who is my husband, and Jamie, who is your wife, we've known each other before we had kids, right? So like most of my audience know, Robert and I have 5 beautiful kids, and most of my audience know we had them things. I don't mean to call
like back to back. Like,
yeah, it was
God,
crazy.
Rob wasn't playing. He wasn't playing. He was on a mission.
He was, Lord, and I ain't gonna go here. But anyway, it was fun. But anyway, so I remember you saying before we had the kids that you and Robert used to have Bible study together. Like y'all used to have really in-depth Bible studies. And you mentioned that, before we had kids and Robert and I guess got married, Robert used to be like, we need to die for the gospel. We need to be on these streets. And then when we got married and began to have kids, my husband kind of was like, the story had changed.
The story didn't change. That brother, man, listen, Rob is like a 5-hour energy drink, and you drink them things all day, man. Rob used to be so high octane. He's more chill now, but he still got that passion and fire for the Lord. But yeah, when we first in our early 20s, like mid 20s, we used to get together, man. Rob used to spend the night over at my house with me and my wife, because me and my wife were like newlyweds. We were like a year or two in. And Rob used to come over and, he used to talk about always wanting a wife, wanting a family or whatever. I remember at the time he was doing culinary. I think he was transitioning from culinary, different things like that. And he's just like, man, G, we need to get out here, man. We need to bump this mess, man. We need to die for the gospel, man. We need to be out here bringing people to Christ. I was married. I'm living in my moment. I'm like, well, for sure, let's go ahead and talk to him. No, man, bump that. Like, we need this brother died. Like, and I'm like, I'm with you, Rob. Come on. So then when he started having kids, he got married. Man, I asked him that same question. He was like, yeah, man, we still about it, but it's a different way we can go about doing it.
Yeah. That's real talk. That's so real. You know, we be kind of naive, you know, before we get into things. And once we got into it, the story did shift. It didn't change. And I thought that was so, yeah.
It got a little more sophisticated. It got a little more sophisticated.
So, you know, one of the things I thought about, you know, how it did change, because, you know, our family, we've homeschooled our kids. They've never been inside of a public school. You know, we've homeschooled our kids. Our homeschooling lifestyle has looked different. I've did online school. I've done traditional school. And I brought that up to say, you know, it did shift for us, because we realized that we really needed to be sharing the gospel with our kids, you know, full time. And so that's how we kind of transitioned, dying for the gospel inside of our household. Because when we looked out, we saw the village, you know, we saw the village, but we wasn't impressed by the village. And we felt like, you know, we could probably, you know, we can't wait for the village to get it. And so the reason why I say that is because when I saw young men growing, I saw a village. I saw a village in your ministry, in your business, in your outreach, your community service. I saw a village. So if someone would want to feel like they had a safe space to put their child into something, I saw young men growing as that village to nurture that young man, you know, as
for
leaders.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, you know, and that's kind of like, you know, YMG, Young Men Growing, is a reflection of who I am, my journey as a young man, transforming into a grown man. You know what I mean? My struggles, my internal struggles, my mental struggles, my physical struggles. You know, trying to find my identity and my masculinity. Then I get saved, trying to find my identity as a Black man, a masculine man, a passive man. I didn't know what type of man I was supposed to be. I just know I love Jesus, and I wanted to live for him, and I wanted to be strong for him. And then when you get married, then that, you know, our wives, you pull something else out of us, and it's like, oh my God, you know. And then, you know, you have kids, then your kids turn into, you know, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then it takes on a whole nother part of you, and you have to become more of a comprehensive man. And I love that terminology, being more of a comprehensive man. And we probably dive into that, but that's more of the life I'm trying to live, is trying to be more comprehensive, wanting to be more balanced in my journey as a Black man, as a saved Black man, as a financial savvy Black man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. As a lover to my wife, Black man, as a lover to my children and my extended family. So absolutely.
Yeah. You know what? You kind of touched on a subject that I actually wanted to ask you just a question about, you know, about growing up. I would love for you to share with the audience a little bit about your background. Maybe somebody that might have stood out to you, if you even had someone. Did you have someone that maybe stood out to you as a father figure, or your dad was your dad in the household, just a mentor, anything? Just share a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So when I was in the 4th grade, my grandmother passed away, and she was the anchor of the family. My grandmother, we call her Nanny. Look, I'm about to tear up now.
Man, I saw that. I'm about to cry too, Gary. Don't do
right.
this.
My grandmother Nanny, she was kind of like the anchor of the family, you know. And I would see her read her Bible. She would take us to church. She would have those dark tint glasses on, have a peppermint tissue in her purse and all that stuff. And you know, she would take us to church and different things like that. But when I was in the 4th grade, she passed away. And so at the time, my father lived in Knoxville, Tennessee. And then when my grandmother died, my mom and my dad made a decision. My mom really made a decision and realized that I had to have a male figure in my life. And so my father came and got me. And that changed my life forever.
Wow.
You know, I can't describe how going with my father, I had an expectation, a certain way of thinking, and it didn't turn out nothing like that. You know what I mean? My father is totally different, which he should be, different than my mother. I grew up with, on my mom's side, I grew up with my aunt, my mom, and nothing but women. So they catered towards me.
That's
You know
real.
what I'm saying? They prayed over me. They massaged me. You know what I mean? They made sure I had, you know what I mean? They just treated me like a
Nurturers.
nurturers, right? Um, but when I came to my father, no, I ain't getting no nurturing. I ain't getting no catering. I didn't get nothing. Like, you know, my father was a brick mason. He laid brick. He still do. And he
Wow.
had me working out there in 90-degree weather, toting block and brick in the fourth, fifth grade. You know what I'm saying? And so my father really chastised me, and he loved me the best way he could. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, you know, my father married another woman. She was married to 2 other children. They were older than me. That was a whole nother beast. But she was into the church. And my father, I'm gonna give him credit. He bought into it. It seemed like from the initial, he bought into it. And we used to. My father was into a well-known church choir throughout East Tennessee and the surrounding parts. And we used to travel a lot. And they used to sing, and I used to sleep the whole time. But they used to go to these certain songs, and I used to wake up. And so, but fast forward, me and my father's relationship was just so toxic. And it was my part, his stepmother's part, his wife, my stepmother at the time. And it was just so toxic. And so I made a decision when I graduated from high school, I'm never going to church again. Never. I'm
Wow.
not going to church. I'm done with this mess.
Wow.
And then if anybody knows that's on this line, I went to Amy Zion. I was a acolyte. I had to carry the torch, and I had to sit on the side of the pastor, and I'm falling asleep like this and snoring, and you know what I'm saying, and that whole thing. And my stepmom could sing, so she could sing pretty good. And I just see a lot of toxic, unhealthy things that was going on, where she would choose the choir over my father. And it was just like a lot of verbal abuse going on between just everybody in the household, because we were a blended family.
That's real.
And so, you know, when I graduated from high school, I came home to Cleveland. I'm trying to fast forward it. And
You good.
I'm 6'6". You know what I'm saying? I played ball all my life. And I thought I was called to play basketball, and I was on trajectory to play the sport that I love at a very high level. And but my grades wasn't solid enough. I had a lot of trauma in my life. I had a lot of hurt. I had a lot of animosity towards my mom, because I felt my mom was supposed to come back and get me at a certain point. So I didn't know that I was sabotaging my relationship with my father in hopes that my father would just kick me out and send me back to Cleveland,
That's real.
because my mom and them, they celebrated the holidays. They loved on each other different. When we had parties,
Right.
and it was just like, you remember those moments growing up. And so, so for me to try to grow and mature, I started thinking, like, if I just be more focused on things that I wanted to do, because I was known for being kind of passive and didn't really care and nonchalant. And so my first day of practice, I didn't notice I had a anxiety attack, where I was paralyzed on the basketball court. And it stayed with me, and it was so intense that I wouldn't run on the right side of the basketball court. And it was so crazy that that I just always felt like somebody was chasing me. That's how severe it was. And so my mom tried to take me to some counselors and see some therapists and different things like that. At the time, it didn't work. And so, by the grace of God, when it was time for me to play, unbeknownst to me, I would play well. And so I ended up getting a full ride to a college, a 4-year university. And so this is where the transformation really happened. And I meet my beautiful wife.
Talk about it.
And then at the time, I'm still going through what I'm going through. Anxiety. I didn't know I was dealing with severe anxiety. I was dealing with depression. I was dealing with rejection. I was dealing with just hurt and pain and anger and frustration. And she was the first person who actually sat down with me, and we would meet. And she would try to share the gospel with me or just talk to me. Now she would answer my questions like, man, if this God is so real, why is people over here dying? Why is this? Why is that? Yada yada yada. And so, me being me, my wife really took to me, and I already knew that she liked me. You know what I mean? Um, but her her righteousness and her love for God caused me to respect that to the utmost, where I would not cross the boundary.
That's good.
If that makes sense. And so, um, me being me, and me being a basketball player, me being on campus, I had a couple other relationships that was going on. And so my wife, my friend at the time, she was like, I can't do this. I can't rock with you like this. I like you. And I feel like you like me, but you got to get yourself together. And so one summer, I'm sitting in my college dorm room, and I'm there by myself, and I'm in all my pain and frustration. And at that time, by that time, I probably went to 2 services. And so I'm sitting on my bed, and I'm in my dorm room bed, and I'm saying to myself, am I going to do this for me, or am I going to do this for Jamie?
That's real. Wow.
And I said, in the same breath, I said, I'm going to do this for me. And so I started to get up. I started to get up and go to church. And it was so funny. The first time I went to church that morning, the night before, I'm ironing my clothes, I'm creasing my clothes. At the time, I'm playing, the only CD that I had was a Fred Hammond CD, I think it was, or a Hawkins. Any of y'all remember Dawkins and Dawkins? I'm playing Dawkins and Dawkins, somebody like that. And I'm playing the only songs I know. And then a knock on the door comes.
Mm.
And it's the girl that I've been trying to separate myself from, who've been like pulling at me, right?
That's real. That's real.
And she was like, "Hey, where you going?" I'm like, I'm going to church." She like, "Can I come with you?" And I'm like, "What? You can't come with me? This is major." You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like,
Wow.
I'm like, "You for real?" She was like, "Yeah, I want to come." So she come to church with me, and I don't remember none of the services. She's sitting right here to the right of me. And I've been going to this church for about a solid month now with my little Bible. It's a small little country church in the backwoods somewhere. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, and he makes the altar call. And I'm like, and it felt like something was holding me back. I promise you.
I
And I'm
believe
just sitting there, and I'm clenching my Bible like this. And he said, "Does anybody want to come up here and get their life to the Lord?" And I promise you, I just like, boom, almost ran him over. I almost ran him over, right? I'm 6'6". I'm like 230 something pounds,
right.
and I'm about to run this little pastor over,
This
right?
train coming through.
Right. I'm coming, like, because you got to understand, I got this girl right here I'm trying to separate from. I'm dealing with my own self, my own fears and anxiety, and I'm hearing this calling for the Lord. And I'm just like, boom. And I go up there, and I'm grabbing the Bible. I'm grabbing. He said, "Brother, relax. Just relax." He said, "Let me hold the Bible." He put it down, and he just read it. He just had me go over the salvation plan, and I accepted the Lord. And from that point on, it was a wrap. In that year's time, me and my wife gets back together. I started a men's ministry on my campus. We end up being able to use the school's vans. I had 2 vans and 2 cars full with people my age going to church. And we started having Wednesday night Bible studies at my house. I mean, in my dorm rooms. And then we had some janitors who were pastors used to come in and minister us. The only tape DVD player that we had was, check this out, Tony Evans, "No More Excuses."
Wow.
That's all we had. Come on now, talk to me. I had Tony Evans and "No More Excuses," right?
Wow.
And man, listen, and
That
it
is
was a
so
revival on that. It was a revival on that campus. And so, yeah, that's my salvation.
wow.
And to be honest with you, I really feel internally like this is 2022. I got saved around 1999, 2000. So I'm about 22 years in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord. What an amazing testimony. Amazing, Gary. Like, I didn't know all that. I'm so glad I didn't know. I didn't know how God had entered your life. I'm so thankful that you shared that with us, because I want Kingdom Talk Live is about connecting people spiritually, mentally, biblically, and financially. I want
Absolutely.
people to understand. That's in our little phrase thing. I want to make sure. But I want people to understand that God is moving through his people through different avenues. And I'm so thankful that you said that you were open to do this interview, because I want people to hear your heart. I want people to understand that, you are a man being moved in a mission for the community. And I
Yeah.
want people to understand the backstory. Sometimes I think we go so fast when it comes to our businesses and promoting and advertising things. We don't understand that people want to know who you are. They want to know who you are before they invest. They want to know who you are because they want to know what type of stuff you doing. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
praying that this is a great opportunity that people can connect with you and reach out to you and donate and see how you need to be, how whatever needs you need to be able to see that, one person, two people, because I know it's you and somebody else. I would love for you to share the young man that's working with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna take a village. It's gonna take more than y'all. So what
Absolutely.
is the young man that's with you? I want to make sure to acknowledge him as well.
No, absolutely. I appreciate that. Definitely. His name is Cameron Mathis.
How did
And
y'all
so
connect? Mm-hmm.
we connected because, man, he's a dean of students and I'm an intervention specialist.
Okay.
And I came to Campus International. Anybody know? It's downtown Cleveland, right there off of Chester and Prospect, right behind Cleveland State University. Um, and we're in the K through 8 building. And prior to me coming, I worked at Euclid High School. And I have a lot of layers to me. Uh, and
Yeah.
so I'm at Euclid High School, and I've been at Euclid for about 3 to 4 years. And I'm just going to be respectful. Euclid High School is a jungle. It's
Bro.
sin is relevant. It's there. We see a lot of things going on in those walls that if I tell you stories, you wouldn't believe it. And so I just felt like I was praying to God, like, I got to get out of here. It's time for me to go. I've served my time. It's time for me to go. And so I had an opportunity. Somebody shared my name with the principal at Campus International. And I got the interview, and she was just like saying, hey, man, I really need somebody to come in here who's going to bring something different. And also, we are an international baccalaureate school. And if anybody understands what that is, it's an IB curriculum. It's almost like a community-based curriculum. And we try to teach people how to be servants of their community with a global mindset. And it's really taking on young people to be thinkers, to be to reflect of who they are internally and deal with their own self. We try to tell them to be courageous. We try to tell them to be thinkers, think outside of the box, and all that come with it. And so she said, but however, the students that are struggling is our young African American males. They're struggling.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I can do that. That's what I do. And so at the time, Cameron, he was probably there 2 years before me. And our first couple of days we met, we just connected, blended well. He had some ideas, I had some ideas, and we started putting this thing together. And it worked out so well because he's a dean of students. He's basically a principal. And I'm the social emotional, I'm an intervention specialist. And I feel like I'm the guy that comes in to fix the problem. You know what I'm saying? And so that's how we met. And so we started doing this thing organic. We started the first time we met in the conference room at our school. We had about 10 to 15 of our young Black boys. And we just started having conversations with them. And over the course of a 5-year period, we started to grow this thing organically. And it started to evolve and it started to take shape. And we were able to put solid concrete things down. And now we're here about 5 years in, full 501c3. We both are certified life coaches through Cleveland State. So not only are we teachers, educators, coaches, but we also are life coaches.
That's
And
good.
so everything of who I am is in this program. And so we came up with the title of Young Men Growing because when I was at Euclid, these young people were doing adult stuff like prostitution, selling drugs,
Oh, Lord.
killing, attempted murders, all type of stuff. But every time they would get in trouble, this was their favorite line: "Hey, man, I'm just a kid. I'm just." And I'm like, hold on, bro. You ain't no kid, man. You out here doing grown folks stuff.
That's real.
You know what I'm saying? Y'all 15, 16, 13, y'all 14 doing grown folk stuff in the high school.
Wow.
And that's where the name came from, young man growing. No, you're not a kid, you're a young man growing. You know what I mean? And so that's where the name young man growing come from. And that's the first thing that we try to impart into our young boys, is young men, is that, hey man, when you get 13, 14, 15, man, you're not a kid no more. You're a young
That's
man
real.
growing. You're a young man growing. So every decision that you make is going to impact you as a young adult. And so that's where the name young man growing come
That's
from.
good. I love that. I love that. I try to tell that to my boys too. I have a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. I tell my 12-year-old all the time, you're gonna be an adult longer than you are a kid. Like, it's time to start looking at your decisions, like paying attention to your decision making and like what's working for you and what's not working for you. And so I love that title, that name for your company. I would love to also, what I noticed in raising my boys, right? Okay, so I got 3 girls and 2 boys. What I noticed raising them was it was always very easy for me to find something for my daughters to get into. Girls got so many different mentor programs, any type of, you want pink hair, they got a pink hair program. It's just it's so many different, so much of a vast array of things for girls to get into. I just went to a girls club this morning. Like, it's so many things feeding our girls. But when I went to the library, I noticed this young, my boys were young. It's got so many different books that girls, for girls to learn how to be girls. Let me see what our Facebook user says. It says, you have the ability to procreate. You have to start thinking like a man. Okay. Amen. Amen. Someone saying that to what you were talking about. Gary. But when I went to the library for my children, I could find so many things for my girls to read. But when it came to the boys, it was like nothing. It wasn't any black superhero, like kid superheroes in the books that I could read to them, nothing character building for them, and I'm not really, to be honest with you, like, the body of Christ, God created every color. Okay, so I want everybody to know I'm not talking about just black people. I love my people, but I love people in general, and I'm not mad at the books. But what I noticed was it was just no books with black boys in it, for me to read to my son so they can identify and have something to relate to. And so another reason why I almost cried, is when I saw what you were doing, is because it was for young men. Like, they need something. I looked over your website, and I'm going to get a chance to show that with our audience in a minute, where to get to your website. But I would love for you to just kind of go over some of these leadership programs. Like, just give us a snippet of what you're giving these young men growing. I'm going to put it up here. I see you have leadership development, social emotional wellness, which is huge, and financial literacy. If you could just, that's dope. I love the financial literacy too. If you could just give us a snippet of each one of your programs that, the boys get a chance to be involved in with you too.
No, absolutely.
Tap into the leadership development first.
Oh no, absolutely. And we added a 4th one, which is community involvement. That's really another big one too.
Oh, that
especially,
is huge.
Especially as a man, being the head of the house, being a protector, being a provider. You have to protect your community. You have to be engaged in your community. And so one of the things, us being life coaches, me being a intervention specialist, one of the biggest things we deal with is the trauma of our Black people, as our Black boys. And before we can get into the financial component, before you can get into the leadership component, before you can get into community involvement, you got to deal with yourself. And we as a people, collectively, we don't deal with ourselves. And it seems like we just have, especially as we have a hard time doing some self-reflecting. And that's where the comprehensive man comes into play. Is like, no, I have to sit down and I have to deal with this trauma, the trauma of how we were enslaved as Black people, the trauma of us not having our fathers in our home. One of the two things that we really started our business on is fatherlessness in the Black community.
Yes.
We ain't talking about stepdaddy, we ain't talking about uncle, we ain't talking about boyfriend, we ain't talking about whoever you may be talking about. We talking about your biological father. Over 65% of our children are born without their biological father in the home. Let me say that again.
Honey.
Over 65% of our children are born without their biological father in the home. That right there alone goes against the biblical principle of a family, right? And then we also understand the plight of the enemy to try to strip the man of who he is and what his role is, right? The second thing that we hold on to is time. Okay, 65% of our brothers are not in the home with their families, right? So when you look at this, a single parent with 2 children, check this out, must work 109 hours per week just to reach self-sufficiency at minimum wage. 109 hours, right?
Wow.
So let's do the math. There's 160 hours. I think I'm reading this thing in
That's
a
fine.
week, right? Right. So you have to work literally 109 hours a week.
Come on with that math.
56 of those hours you're sleeping.
Jesus.
So guess what that leaves you with to talk about maturity development, financial, emotional, healthy relationships, just making right, wholesome decisions. You only get 3 hours. That's all you get. So we wonder why we are in the situation that we're in when we're talking about our young Black boys. Yeah. We wonder why that most of our women are trying to play 2 different type of roles. You have women that are overmasculated, right? And then you have very women that are struggling in their femininity in that space too as well. And so those are the 2 things that we hold on to. That's where we started laying our foundation, is that we really, and guess what? We felt like we the bridge over troubled water. We felt like we wanted to be those uncles. We wanted to be those brothers. We wanted to be those father figures that were going to have the time, the resource, and the commitment and the energy to get our young men what they need. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I put my effort at. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where you get it. So once we start dealing with that trauma, right? We start breaking them down, and we started. And I go back to my father real quick. The one thing I had to do as a man, as I started getting older, is that I really had to learn how to understand that my father raised me the best way he knew how, right? And that means a lot. And then the other thing is, I had to stop comparing myself to my father and stop saying I'm going to be a better man than my father, because guess what? This race is an individual race. This is an individual race. This is not a competition. No, I'm not competing against my father. My father done his job. My job is to be the best version of myself, right?
Yes,
and that's why you see this number 9. You see this number 9 right here on my shirt. That 9 represents wholeness. My goal is, and our organization goal is, to help try to get our young people to be the best version of themselves, not to be perfect. Now we get into the gospel. God never called us to be perfect because we can't be perfect. But God did try to tell us, listen, I need you to put your best foot forward. I need you to understand that, in the midst of your valley, I'm walking with you. I'm doing this thing with you. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to stub your toe. You're going to bang your head. You might even have a desire to turn back around. You might even start turning back around. Guess what? I'm never going to leave you nor forsake you. And so, that's when we talk about we believe, because that's the first thing I want my young people to know. I want my parents to know. I want my guardians to know. We believe in them so much that we designed this program specifically for them. And guess what? Another thing that we had to evolve into is like to feel okay in that and sit in that and say, you know what? I look at the Jewish culture community. I look at the Latinos. I look at Caucasian community. They got their stuff.
That's real.
They have their stuff. So why can't we walk in our purpose and walk with our heads up high and say, this is us. This is for us. And so that's why I said, man, listen, man, this is for black boys. This ain't nothing else. And so people when they see it, they're like, this is so different. Because like you said, LaShonda, they don't have it. Like I see the co-ed stuff, I see that, but I don't see nothing strictly designed for y'all in mind. And so that's another reason why we started, because it was like, we got something here. It's not to
Yeah.
say that nobody else is out here doing the work, because there's a lot of people out here doing the work. You know what I'm saying? We just playing our part in this big community of people that's trying to help young people out.
Amazing. 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 Tap on this financial literacy right quick. Tap on this before we go ahead. We're about
Oh,
to wrap it up. Tap on that right
oh,
quick.
okay.
What y'all doing with the young men with that?
Oh, absolutely. So when we start doing our research and we start looking at the numbers, man, we realized that the generational wealth gap is crazy. I mean, when we look at the 1968 Housing Act, and we saw that in 1968, that the average household for a black family, we talking about assets, we talking about ownership, we talking about owning land, we talking about owning annuities. We were at like, and I'm sorry, I think we were at like under 10K. I don't have it under 10K. When you look at the, I want to let's be fair. I'm gonna say about 12 to 15 because I don't have the number right in front of me. When
Gotcha.
you look at the white community at that time in 1968, they were at between 75K to almost 100,000 in annuities, home ownership, right? Owning their own businesses, right? When you go back and you look at the statistics in 2000, between 15, 17, the black community, we doubled. We're about 20, 25K on average, right? When you look at the white community, they have doubled. They're at almost 200K. So you look at the generational wealth gap, it's crazy. So the one thing we started to say, and after I started reading all this, doing all this research and reading, is like, we will never climb over this mountain. We will never be equipped. We will never be equal to them. So what does that mean? We got to start dealing with who we are as a people and start developing our own. And so instead of comparing myself to Jim, Jane, and Bob, how about I just start working on what I got and start educating myself on how to make myself more efficient and more equipped in my financial knowledge. And so if I do that, I'm going to begin to create momentum. And that momentum is going to catapult me into understanding how to invest, how to become an entrepreneur, how to keep my job, invest in my 401k, and still also come up with another side hustle. That's what we teach our young boys.
That's good.
That's it.
That's
That's the
so
basic
good.
financial literacy that we teach. The basic foundations to understand that the generational gap is always going to be there. But guess what? That doesn't have to stop us from evolving and growing. And these are three things I tell people, and I know we on this. The first thing is I tell my young boys, I say, you have to put an anchor in your spiritual belief. I have decided as a man that my spiritual foundation will always reside in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Right? The second thing I tell my young boys is this: you got to learn how to control your penis.
That's real talk.
Control your penis.
Flat
Okay?
out.
Flat out. Control your penis. And the third thing is become comprehensive in your financial literacy.
That's right.
Know how to earn and know how money works. And stop working for money and let money start working for you.
Yeah.
Those are one of the three things that we teach.
Love it. Love it. Man, if y'all ain't getting these gems right here. Oh my goodness. So I want to go ahead and wrap everything up. This has been an amazing interview. Gary, you have done very well for this to be your first interview. Your first interview like this of many. Because I did see an interview of you not too long ago on the news. So this is not your first, but maybe your first restream first.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about
Absolutely.
that?
Where I'm actually live. That was recorded. We could practice that.
Okay.
Like, do it again. This is live. So
Well, I like the live. You're doing good on the live. You need to keep doing the live because people need to hear this message. We don't know. People don't know until you tell them. Yes, dropping jewels on us, someone said from Facebook. He sure is. Like, people need to hear more. We need to know that these things are going on. So I'm so glad to play a small part in exposing what God is doing through you, through your business, through these young men. It's just it's amazing. And I really wanted to, oh, Brother Robert is on here. Look, my baby is on here, y'all. Great
My
job,
brother
bro.
Rob Beasy. What's up, brother?
Yes.
Rob
Love
Beasy
you,
in the
honey.
building.
But yeah, so I'm so thankful for you to share this information. And please, for those who are watching, share the interview. Share this information with your friends and family. Share this interview so people can know more about young men growing. I wanted to make sure that I told you guys how to contact Young Men Growing, how to contact Mr. Gary Hicks. The website is www.youngmengrowing.org. You can email them at youngmengrowing@gmail.com. They also have social media handles like Facebook, which is at YMG216. We have Instagram at Young Men Growing, and he also has Twitter, Young Men Growing. So you can't forget how to get to him. I'm so thankful y'all was consistent in naming, keeping that name seamless throughout getting in contact with you.
Oh, absolutely.
So Gary, it has been a phenomenal time. Thank you so much once again. And tell Jamie, thank you so much for allowing me to have just this little moment of you being here. I know, one thing when I did see your interview, I reached out to her first because, most of the time the unsung heroes be the wives and the kids. And so I'm so thankful for her allowing you to do, you guys working together. And her being the unsung hero behind the scenes of what you're doing in front. I know she's a powerful woman of God too,
No,
though.
absolutely. Yes, very
Definitely.
powerful.
You know.
If you don't mind,
Mhm.
one of the things that I would want to say to my single moms out there, there's some really good resources out, and one of the gentlemen that I really want to share that I can think off the top of my head is this brother right here. His name is called Jason Wilson. It's called Cry Like a Man. You can follow him on Instagram. He got Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. He really ties into us being as comprehensive men, and he does some really good stuff out of Detroit. He has a nonprofit as well, and I've taken a lot of things from him. He has helped me in my journey, and he has a really good interview on the Breakfast Club where he dives in to talk about the trauma. And one of the things that I had to deal with is my own trauma so that I can help be a better version of myself. And the other thing is so that I can learn how to live in the moment. And that's really big, even in good times and bad times, to learn how to live in the moment, especially in bad times as well. We don't learn how to live in that moment so we can maximize that moment and learn from it. You feel what I'm saying? And so I just really wanted to plug that into my single moms and also my dad's. Man, he really got some really good stuff. And I got a whole other book, a lot of books and other men that I follow, but Jason Wilson is one of those ones that I really highly recommend.
I truly appreciate you sharing that. That was a major reason why I wanted you on here, because I know you guys are filling in that gap. And I'm so glad you shared that resource. I'll try to look up the interview on the Breakfast Club and make sure I put it inside the KTL After Party group so we can, kind of get familiar with who you're referring to. And also, I'll put a link to the book. So I truly appreciate that, Gary. So
Absolutely.
I hope you have the best rest of your day.
For sure.
And like I said, you guys, make sure you reach out to him. Make sure you guys go on the website, check him out, check out Young Men Growing. God is going to do amazing things through this, and I believe in it every fiber of my being, and I know that you do too. So
Absolutely.
I hope you have a great rest of your morning, you guys. Make sure you catch KTL Kingdom Talk Live this coming Saturday, you guys, at 11 o'clock. It's going to be on Facebook Live. At 11, we're going to be talking about, is church relevant? Is church still relevant today? What you think? I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait to see my co-host on here. And you guys, you too, have a great rest of your day. Love you all. Bye.